Welcome to Architects of Opportunities, a series on founders of nonprofit organizations. We will look at how one person or a few people saw a need in your community and found a way to fill it. Who are the people that are inspired to see a need and bring others together to lend a hand, and not for profit? They are the nonprofit founders. Founders are everyday heroes. They envision possibility and persevere to accomplish it. Founders in all sectors and across the country share a common vision. They want to make a difference. Today, we will introduce you to one organization who makes a contribution to your community.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for having us over to your place, and we're very excited to be here and want the whole world to know about what you do. So we're going to start by introducing you, Mea and Jerry, and you have two organizations that we can talk about, but why don't we first just jump into what you were doing and what made you think to start a nonprofit?
It probably started with the farm, which started with an idea, and Jerry studied conservation of natural resources at Berkeley, and he just wanted to do some organic farming. And then there was a lot of produce, and people wanted to share it, and that grew into a membership where people just have a little. Doesn't cost anything, but just a little orientation, and then people become members and they can come and pick. And we found that there were a lot of related issues around sustainable agriculture. Bees were an important part of it for us, and as we learned more about the decline of bees, there were more projects involved, and the fundraising for those projects, those ancillary projects, had to go through a nonprofit, and we had to pay a fee to process the donations. So that was how Jerry established our nonprofit called SuperOrganism, which is what a bee colony is, functions as one. So that was why we named it that. And that was how SuperOrganism came to be, just to process donations for projects that we were mentoring, husbanding, and supporting.
So our first projects were an event that we did in Mill Valley with the generous support of the Pancheria Foundation. And we held a all-day event in Mill Valley. And we brought together pollinators, people who study pollinators, people who study honeybees, people that wanted to be involved in helping honeybees, and we did that for 4 years in a row in Mill Valley, and it was just a really great event to raise the awareness of the plight of pollinators in agriculture, and that in turn led to a pollination education program that SuperOrganism sponsored with Pancheria's help, and we hired a teacher, developed curriculum for 5th graders. We ended up bringing 12 5th grade classrooms into the program. We did an hour in the classroom. We did an hour at a garden that was made to enhance some pollinators, and then a follow-up lesson. And then we dovetailed the lessons to 5th grade because that was part of the California school curriculum, so that it would match what they needed to be learning for that time in their elementary school. And that was a very successful program. We did that for 2 years, and then the curriculum that we developed for that, we also sent to a sister school in Germany, so that they could pick up from what we had developed and carry it forward.
So you started out here in San Anselmo.
Correct.
Where your farm was. It's called the Draper
Farms.
Draper Farms.
Right.
And
Draper Farms is an organic farm. We've been here 21 years. We grow food for restaurants and caterers. And then we have chickens. We've raised organic pigs. We have up to 15 beehives scattered on the hillside. And Mea is a journalist and writes for the two largest bee magazines in the United States. That would be Bee Culture and American Bee Journal. And that led to our interest in honeybees. And I think we've been keeping bees for, what do you think, about almost 30 years now?
Well, we used to say 25, but that was for a long time, so it must be close to 30.
Right.
And so when you talk about pollinators, maybe you could describe that to our listeners, because not everyone, that's a name that's not, people just call it bees. But
Well, the pollinators, the native pollinators that were counted at this garden that was designed by Gordon Franke of UC Berkeley, we counted 62 different native pollinators there, attracted by the forage that was planted. There are many, many, some of which look like flies, and you can tell the difference. If it has 4 wings, it's a bee. If it has 2, it's a fly. They're very important in our environment, and because they put the pollen and the nectar directly on their eggs, they take a direct hit of any kind of pesticides, whereas the bees, the European honeybees, can process that a little more. So European honeybees are imported, just like the fruits and vegetables that we all love, and just like us. And so there's a difference. There are just many species, and honeybees are one species with a number of subspecies.
so more than just the honeybees are pollinators.
Oh yes, bumblebees, you'll see bumblebees. And in fact, bumblebees do buzz pollination, which the honeybees can't do. So our tomatoes are all buzz pollinated by bumblebees. And there are other pollinators that can reach plants that the honeybees can't reach. So you'll see their little proboscis is a different length or size. It's a big pollinating world out there. And there are also, of course, hummingbirds and other creatures that are pollinators. Butterflies.
How many hives do you keep?
Well, we're up to 6 right now. We had 15 a couple of years ago, and sadly, all 15 died that winter. So honeybees are under a lot of pressure. There's a mite that is a great vector for diseases that arrived in the U.S. in 1987. And it makes it really, really hard to keep honeybees. We used to just do almost nothing and get 6 or 8 gallons of honey every year from one hive. And now, looking at last winter, for example, we had 8 hives going into the winter. We had 4 hives coming out of the winter, so we lost 4. And the losses nationwide, I believe last year, were running around 42%. So if you think about the fact that 1 out of 3 mouthfuls of food comes as a gift from a pollinator, losing so many pollinators and having them be under such pressure should be cause for alarm. You would think that people would take this more seriously than what we see.
Well, when you say that it came from something in 1988, did you say? And what was that? Did it come from a different country? How was it brought over?
Right. It's a mite. It's called Varroa destructor. It came from Asia. There's no natural predator here in the U.S. or in Europe or anywhere outside of Asia, really. So that pest is a huge problem.
And it came on fruit or something that was confiscated.
Right.
It came in
You know,
and
it came here?
It came in on bees, but here's the thing: it jumped species, and then it came in on European bees. But if you were to look at a graph at the decline, you would find that the decline is pretty steady from just after World War II. And so what happened then? We had pesticides that were introduced from the war, and you can see the decline going. And at the same time, we changed the way we do agriculture from small, diverse farms to very large monocrops. So if there is a problem with nutrition where the bees are eating just one thing, it would be like if we only ate French fries. And then they'll be moved to another plot where they just eat one thing. And that weakens them, and so they're more susceptible to the viruses that are vectored by this mite. So it started a long time ago, and it just keeps going down. And of course, the drought that we have right now is not helping the forage. But in general, if you were to boil it down, I would say that it has a lot to do with the way we do agriculture.
What do you think is a cure for that?
Ooh.
Well, that's what we formed SuperOrganism to work on that problem. And what we have with our farm here in San Anselmo is we have a model urban farm where there was a time in World War II where there were victory gardens all over the place feeding people. And now we're showing that that can be done on a small scale. And if we can do it here, we've been doing it for a long time, very successfully, then we think that can be carried elsewhere. And then when we look at pollinators and we look at the food system that we have, that's the work that we want to do. We want to work on pollinators, and we want to work on farming. We want to have a sustainable food system where we're producing really good, healthy food for people that want to be healthy.
Well, can you talk a little bit about your garden? How big is it? How many people does it feed? Who tends it?
Sure. So we have a 1 acre farm, so it's very, very small. We grow, I think we added that we grow maybe 105 different varieties of 50 vegetables throughout the growing season. So we grow year round. Here in California, that's very possible. We grow everything from seed. We focus on open pollinated varieties as contrasted with hybrid varieties. And we buy seeds from people that are in the business of saving seeds, mostly open pollinated seeds, also called heirloom seeds. And we like to grow maybe 3 or 4 kinds of every vegetable because they're all different. And so we grow 3 different kinds of squash, 3 different kinds of beans, 3 different kinds of cucumbers. We grow about 15 or 18 kinds of tomatoes. Tomatoes are our biggest crop, and there's nothing like a fresh tomato. So you get to the point where you just wait until they're in season. And then when we first started, we started very small with just a garden really for our family, and then one year we grew 200 tomato plants, and we found ourselves downtown San Anselmo talking to chefs. And one chef in particular, Steve Simmons at Bubba's on San Anselmo Avenue, really let us know how important it was for him to get really good quality, and saying, wow, you have this big garden, I'd like to get some of those vegetables. So we started what is now our community supported agriculture project, and that has turned into what we call a membership U-Pick. So the farm is not open to the public, and we have families that have joined the farm and who come here every day and pick vegetables. And it's astonishing. For the last 5 years, we've been averaging 350 unique family purchases over the year. So that's just amazing. How many people? Some people just come when we have tomatoes going. Some people come year round. Some people come 3 times a week. Some people come once, and it was a unique experience, and they don't come again. But I'd say we have about 100 very dedicated families that come and buy vegetables here over the year.
That's fantastic. And with the different restaurants that you serve, maybe we'll put their logos up on.
Yeah, we have Comforts in San Anselmo is our biggest customer, and they've been totally supportive from the very beginning. and Glenn and Laura Miwa we're just so grateful that they really get it. They're involved in producing really great food, and the chefs know that the cost of the actual vegetable is not the largest cost in making a meal. It's labor and other overhead. So getting a really fresher ingredient is really worth it.
Well, Jerry, do you think that other communities in Marin or elsewhere could do this? What would it take?
That's what we think. We think that we've proven that you can do that. We have been able to grow food successfully, and we have a very dedicated group of people that buy food here. So if this 1 acre lot can be used in that way, then why not every 1 acre lot? And what about places, in Detroit, or what about places in where there just are no food options? What about places like that? And we know that there are places where there are very successful programs similar to what we're doing. So we're not really unique. We're doing it, but there are other people doing it. They're doing it in tough neighborhoods. They're doing it in Oakland. They're doing it in Detroit. They're doing it in Minnesota. So we know that they can do it, and you cut out a whole segment of people in between, and there are probably 3 things that you can do to really improve your food situation. One would be buy fresh food and cook it yourself. Number 2, just avoid all processed foods completely. And then number 3, just eat more fruits and vegetables this year than you did last year.
One thing that we could have help with is at the governmental level. We pay for water as though we're wasting it, as though we're washing our car down the driveway. And so if there was some support for water, and if there was some support now, in order to be taxed as a farm, you have to have 400 contiguous acres. And so if it would be possible for 400 non-contiguous acres to be a consortium of some sort, to be taxed as a farm, that would be a good thing. And also most of the government support for research and other kinds of support go to big agriculture. And a very small amount goes to organic or what people call natural, but they don't want to be certified agriculture, or agriculture using fewer chemicals. And if there was more government support for that kind of farming, that would be another good thing.
So you don't probably have a lot of spare time to advocate for that, right? How do you get the word out?
Well, we had a project that was really successful. Bonnie Morse, a beekeeper, spearheaded it, and we processed the funding for it. And it was the pollen project where across Marin, we participated also as beekeepers. There were, I think, 28 different sites, and we took, over a 9-month period, we took pollen samples every month, sent them we did it in conjunction with Penn State University and the USDA, and we came out with tests that showed 13 different pesticides that were found that the bees were collecting in the pollen in Marin, 6 of which were highly toxic to bees. And so we at the Fairfax Festival, we do a little observation hive, and we put signs up that tell, and people are surprised because Stacy Carlson, who is our Ag Commissioner, the bee guy, said that 95% of what we found comes in people's backyards. And so that's signage, and then we have an observation hive at the Marin County Fair where we talk to people one-on-one. And it would be nice if we had more of an outreach than that, so that people could understand more that what they pick up that says pet friendly, for example, will kill insects, including bees. So that educational component would be something that would be very good to enlarge.
So think about this. people go to the store, to the nursery, and they buy plants that have been drenched in imidacloprid, for example, very toxic to bees. Or they buy a spray and spray it in their yard and use up the whole can. And then a bee comes along and picks up pollen, and the chemical is systemic in the plant, brings it back to their colony and feeds it to their babies. And that is never tested. There's no test whatsoever by EPA or USDA to make any kind of an analysis of whether that would be bad for honeybees or other pollinators. So, name your pollinator, and certainly it's worse for solitary bees than it is for honeybees. But getting that awareness out is really tough, because as soon as you start working to get that word out, you have these super organized commercial interests that are countering anything that you would bring out there. So it's a very tough piece of information to get out. And I think the most amazing thing is just that the fact that honeybees are collapsing across the country has probably done more to raise awareness about the plight of our ag system than any ad could do.
Well, right now, the EPA is having an open period, so this is a really important period of time, because the presidential memorandum of June 20th was asking for more investigation into the neonicotinoids. Imidacloprid is one of them, and so the EPA is taking another look. It's an uphill battle for people who are wanting to be more conservative about chemicals, but at any rate, there is a period now where people are able to give feedback and where there's another look at these chemicals.
I can remember when you first contacted us to do this, to get you into the documentary and the TV. So you were the first ones that actually saw it somewhere and called, and you weren't as persistent as some, I would say. But still, now that I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this has got to get out there. Who's doing it? Who's getting it out there? We just don't hear about it so much. Are there any legislators here in Marin that are on your side that are doing something to make a difference?
Well, Jared Huffman helped us a little bit, helped us with a labor issue that we had when Jerry's sister was working here at the farm, and we had a kerfluffle with the labor department that he helped us through. And I think that at Levine is looking at the neonicotinoids situation in the nurseries. But again, Lottie Morse, who worked on the pollen project, she went around to all the nurseries and asked each and every one if they had neonicotinoid soaked plants. And at that time, the Ace Hardware next to the Civic Center, said, I had no idea. We'll stop right away. We'll label everything. And not only that, but we'll have a plant sale to benefit what you're doing. And the rest of all the rest of the nurseries said, well, we can't guarantee and so forth. But there's a sea change going on among the nurseries where they're taking another look at that and making decisions not to have neonicotinoid soaked plants. But one other thing that the Morses are doing is a survivor stock project, which is a breeding project, and that's another way that we're going at bee survival. And so SuperOrganism is helping to support that in every way that we know, and both by writing about it and by funneling funding. So that's breeding bees that the other problem, the other chemical problem that bees have is chemicals that are put into the hives by beekeepers. And so they are breeding bees that we're hoping will be stable without those chemicals. That's another piece of it. That's all we need.
There is more interest, though, right, in having hives and being trained in it. I see classes all over.
What happened about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the so-called colony collapse disorder, where bees were disappearing from the commercial colonies, that stimulated an enormous influx of people interested in bees, and all across the country. Bee clubs went from 10 or 15 members to 200 or 300 members. People started keeping bees. They started putting bees in their backyard. They found out it was illegal to keep bees in their backyard. It was illegal to keep bees in New York. You couldn't keep poisonous snakes, lions, tigers, and honeybees. And in Marin, the bee club went from 15 or 17 members to over 300 members. We regularly get 75 to 100 or more members to our monthly meetings, where we're bringing in researchers who are doing the real work and coming and out and talking to people, and that has made a huge difference. And what we hope to do with SuperOrganism is, since our mission is sustainable agriculture, is to be available and show that all the techniques that we're using, that's how we learn. So we found that other organic farmers in Marin are not stingy with information. They are so willing to help teach you how they're growing beautiful food. They want to share that, and we want to share that. So one of the purposes of our nonprofit SuperOrganism is to do that.
I help nonprofits hire staff and leaders to carry on their founder's vision. And so I've seen hundreds of nonprofits contribute to our community. We created Architects of Opportunities to share that with you. Now, nonprofit founders will tell you they don't do it alone. If you're among the 25% of us who are volunteers or volunteer board members or staff or donors, thank you. And if you're not, please join us in making a difference.